Welcome back. I'm told there's some breaking news. 6 lions have strayed out of the Nairobi National Park and have been seen roaming around the Kitengela area. We'll keep you informed about this story as it develops. Meanwhile, welcome, gentlemen. Honorable Kuria, welcome.
Thank you.
Let us now discuss about the issue of what took place yesterday. What we intend to do is to look at the President's State of the Nation address and give your opinions about what you think about it. And we start with you, Mr. Kuria.
Thank you.
Give us an overview of the President's presentation as stipulated by Article 10 of the Constitution.
Thank you, Mutegi. I think it is important to bring this matter into perspective, that the State of the Nation address is a requirement of our Constitution, that every year the President, as the head of state, has to give an account of where we are as a country in terms of, first of all, our national values, in terms of our international obligations, and in terms of where we are going as a country. And I think he did just that, despite all the side shows. My regret is that when I read the newspapers today, the main issues have been crowded by what happened. I would have expected to see the very hefty statement he made in terms of infrastructure, that by the end of 2017 we are going to have doubled up kilometers of tarmac that has been there since independence. From independence in 2013 and 2013 to now, double the number of tarmac kilometers. That we have by 56% added to our energy production. When Jubilee government came to power, there was 1,400, 500 megawatts of energy. Now we are 2,200 megawatts. So we have by 50% increase from what was there for 50 years. So what has taken 50 years, we can do in 6 years if we go by the same path. That our people have been going to India for treatment, and now in 2 hospitals in every county, they can be able to get the specialized equipment that you can find anywhere. That we have made a lot of you look at SGR and what it's going to do, the impact on the economy, contributing 1.5% of GDP extra to the GDP you have simply from one project. So I think it's a lot of good things for this country, a lot of positive things and promising things, which unfortunately were lost because of the other side issues that we saw yesterday.
And Mheshimiwa, what do you think about what your perspective of the President's presentation?
I think as we clearly demonstrated yesterday, that Kenyans no longer want to be treated to PR. Kenyans want substance as far as the State of the Nation address is concerned. And the State of the Nation address, as has been pointed out, is mainly about the President putting a finger on the pulse of the nation as far as what the nation is feeling is concerned. And when you look at Article 132 saying that the President will address Parliament as far as Article 10 is concerned. Yeah. And when you look at Article 10, the bulk of Article 10 looks at the fabric of our nation: inclusivity, good governance, integrity, and the issues that put our country together. And we can't run away from these issues. So the President began by saying that our nation is strong. And he said that we acknowledge that we have 42 communities. But this is just rhetoric, because when you look at the action is such that we have 2 superior communities and the rest of the communities who have to then scramble and see by way of favor getting the rest of the national cake. If you look at public appointments, for example, and you look at our cabinet, 11 members out of the 22 or the 23 are mainly from 2 communities, regions. If you look at principal secretaries, look at parastatals, look at boards, there is a very skewed appointment trend, which just favors 2 communities, and the rest of the 40 communities have to scramble. And these are the things that we are saying. We cannot sit back and continue to listen to rhetoric while the fabric of our nation is torn apart. If you look at the state of corruption, for example, in this country today, and when the president speaks, he says we are addressing this, we are addressing that, but every new day we wake up to a new scandal, including, you know, and including senior government officials implicated. We saw NYS. NYS has become a circus. My brother Bosses Kuria here said anybody who opposes NYS will be slashed. Then it turns out to be a mega scandal, and when finger pointing left and right, including the majority leader is now implicated. The deputy majority leader in the Senate is implicated, and we continue to see no action. So this is the rhetoric that we stood up to.
What the president said about corruption? He said something about corruption.
Yes. He keeps on giving this rhetoric that people will carry their cross, that the government is dealing with it, and we do not see this in actual action. You know, this is what we are up against.
What about the people who have been sacked because of corruption?
You know, when the president spoke last year, he gave us a list of 175 people, and he said that this will be followed up, and the action is just not enough. It's just not enough. The mega scandals in this country and the issues that we have raised as regards corruption, one is NYS. Anne Waiguru was never sacked. Pressure from the opposition made her resign. She was never sacked. The high priests of corruption continue to sit in government. There is no serious action, and this is what we're saying. We have not had anything as far as the Eurobond is concerned, and we have raised very, very serious questions around it. So there's just not enough action.
Mr. Kuria, one of the issues raised by Article 10 is about rule of law, democracy, and governance, and good governance. And he is addressing that matter about corruption. Are you satisfied with the way corruption is being dealt with in the Jubilee government?
First of all, even ring-fencing the issue of corruption, because corruption is one arena that, the only arena that God would want this country to be. I lament the fact that we have got 2 completely different narratives in this country. So one narrative you're talking about, you know, the real progress in terms of sustainable development goals, in terms of education, in terms of water, in terms of agriculture, in terms of putting food for our table, in terms of doing those things which Kenyans out there are concerned about most. And I'm not saying they're not concerned about corruption. On the other hand, there is the other Kenya that where it's not Kenya actually. I actually want to send an invitation to call people to visit Kenya, because it seems like they don't live in Kenya. Because the other Kenya for them is the one we talk about inclusion or inclusivity. And you know, I do talk to senior civil servants, cabinet secretaries, principal secretaries, chief executives of state corporations who are from even some of the predominant cold areas, and you know, they are agonized when yesterday I was talking to one PS from Nyanza, for example, and he was telling me, you know, I feel lost when people talk about inclusivity. I am from Nyanza, I am a principal secretary, I am in government. How am I supposed to go and tell my village people down there when I go back, when they say there are no senior people from Nyanza who are in government? Very good, refined professionals from Nyanza. But the problem with the political class from CORD, for example, is that they are total disconnect, even from their own people. They don't even know what their people want. Their people want the same things that people, other people.
Percentages. If you have one rule of principal secretary,
which is the case,
and 15 from the 2 communities, that's not fair.
Look here. You know, my good friend, the Right Honorable Prime Minister, was once, you know, when he was Prime Minister, we went to 2nd floor of the Prime Minister's office. Only rules were there. It is not the case today in the office of the president. You've got very senior people who are not from the president community. So before you remove a peg from other people's eyes, remove the log from your own eyes. But what I want to say is, so what if Mutegi Njau is appointed principal secretaries? Are other people of Embu going to be better off? Because Mutegi Njau is now a principal secretary. If Gladys Wanga is now a cabinet secretary, all the people of Homa Bay are going to dance and have more money in their pocket. And let's remove this myopic view of public appointments, whereby you think because Moses Kuria has been appointed to this, now all the people of Gatolo are going to be much better off. Let's look at the holistic view, because why look at up there? Why not look at the cracks, secretaries, senior deputy secretaries, and the holistic thing? Why are you only focusing on the top, as if you focus on the top, it's going to mean much better for the people who are there?
Let's talk about corruption.
Let's talk about corruption. I'm not telling you from that.
Let me, if you allowed me, yes, to intervene on this issue of public appointment, and you see just how much the goalpost is shifting. When my brother Moses Kuria here is speaking, first he said that he met a principal secretary from Nyanza who said, we are here and we are working in government. And when you push the question on percentages, he said it shouldn't matter anymore. It matters, because the constitution is very, very clear about it. The fabric that holds our nation together is very, very dependent on how inclusive any government is. And this habit
based on in Article 10, inclusiveness.
Yes, it is very, very clearly spelled out by Constitution. So it cannot be dismissed as myopism when we question public appointments. The top is a reflection of it. You cannot tell me that there are many sweepers who are from these other regions, so we should not care, because when you take 1,000 sweepers and compare it with only 20 principal secretaries, that it shouldn't matter. Policy is made at the top. The direction that this country takes is made at the top. It is not made by those cleaners, those sweepers, and the rest of this country. The rest of the 40 communities are not going to be satisfied with junior clerical, functions, and you want this to be counted. And these are the failures that yesterday we were highlighting, and a lot has been said about. Is that
how you highlight?
A lot has been said about.
How much of the State of National Address did you listen to? Mutegi has asked you what the president said about corruption, and I almost, I'm shocked, because you never listened to any of those. How did you know what the president wants to say? How did you benefit from Wisos Gladys?
Let me say
how much does the placards help?
Let us not discuss the.
Let me say.
Why couldn't you have sat through and listened to what the president said about inclusivity, or corruption, all those things?
Mr. Kuria, let us not.
What is the moral ground you have to comment on something you didn't sit through to listen to?
Let me say this. I do not have to sit in Parliament to know what the president said. As you are very well aware, my brother Kuria, this was televised live. This speech is available for all Kenyans to read, and therefore I do not have to have sat in Parliament to have listened or to comment to it. And we're going to be giving, of course, a comprehensive response as court. But let me contextualize our action from yesterday. And you said, did you have to do that? The Constitution is very, very clear in Article 37 on the right to picket. It is very clear. And what we did was we told the president we don't want any more PR. We want action. We want tangible action. And I have just given one case in point. I have just said, the president said we have 42 communities. We are a strong nation.
Is picketing limited to Homa Bay and Kisumu and Siaya counties? In the Constitution, you're going to talk about national distribution, or was there regional balance in the picketing?
Let me just say this very, very clearly. Let me just make it very, very clear that Article 37 is very clear. You can picket. Article 2 is very clear that
even for picketing there should be regional balance.
This issue of there must be regional balance. We had
you guys cry for regional balance. How can Coast picket, Canvas picket, Luyas picket? How come only one community was picketing? That is not regional balance.
We had the Member of Parliament, and picketing should not be equated to those who were sent out of Parliament. This was a Code Parliamentary Group agreement, and we went on to execute it.
But Namwamba has denied that. Mwamaba said that is...
Where did he deny?
No, he has issued a statement even on his Twitter account.
That was a fake Twitter, that was a fake tweet.
Kalonzo, they say,
those were fake tweets generated to cause confusion. And so, if you go to Kalonzo's Twitter page, he last tweeted 3, 4, 5 days ago, and somebody generates a fake tweet, same to Ababu's tweet, fake tweet. So you cannot generate lies to try and cause
confusion. So you are very proud of what you did yesterday. Your children were watching you. What do you think was going on inside their mind to see their mother? I would like us to refrain from being personal. I would like us to discuss the issues.
But what were your children saying when you said that everybody should be slashed who does not support NYM? What did your children say? No, but what did your children say when you said...
Even if it's not true. You are a woman, a mother.
No, what did your children say when you said everybody who opposes NYM should be slashed with bangers?
You are trivializing.
What did your children say when you said Foskins stop thinking? What did your children... So there should not be double standards. At least I did what is constitutionally acceptable.
No, let me... First of all, you're a mother. Even if it's, just by that standard and how we hold our mothers in this country in high esteem, shouldn't, you have the women of the children of Homabay, starting with your own children.
Maybe the difference
what do you think of their mama county?
Maybe the difference here is because you were selected for the people of Gatundu South.
I would rather be selected by rather than do those shameful things you are doing yesterday. You and the people of Homabay and Kajuang, what you did was despicable. And you may be proving right some of the things I say.
I might end this discussion if you continue being personal and talking irrelevant things. I would like us to talk about corruption as what the president spoke, not about whatever you said before. Let us be decent.
Stop lecturing him, Mutegi. Let me talk about corruption, okay?
Let us talk about corruption. What is your view about corruption?
Two main things came out yesterday. One, the president said that he watched by as he lost 6 members of his cabinet because of corruption. Number two, 336 cases are in court. 365, in fact, according to are in court. And the executive can only do so much. It can only take those matters to the judiciary. And he said from there, it is for the judiciary. And I want even court to come and say that there were no cases that were taken forward to the judiciary, that 6 cabinet secretaries did not lose their position one way or the other due to corruption, that 1.4 billion shillings has not been recovered and is now with the Asset Recovery Center. The government has made, corruption is an issue in this country, and the government has made tangible, very viable steps in the battle against corruption. Corruption is not come with the Jubilee government. It was even there before, even during the time of Grand Coalition government. The big question is, how much are we doing in terms of fighting that corruption? Have we shown resolve in the fight against corruption? And my humble submission is, yes, we have shown resolve in the battle against corruption. Yes, we have taken very, very viable steps. These backstops to the judiciary, and we need to see what's happening at the judiciary. Which other government would have lost 6 cabinet secretaries? Yeah, out of 18, a third of the cabinet, and still remains intact. That is nothing but resolve.
Okay, what about what is happening with the National Youth Enterprise Fund?
Now the National Youth Enterprise Fund,
yes.
And the chairman has stepped down. The matter is within the competent authorities, and the matter was even taken up by Parliament. Cases of corruption will keep coming up. They were there, they'll be there. The issue is the process. Are we doing enough? What have we done, to fight corruption? If Bruce Odhiambo would not have resigned as a chairman of the Youth Fund, then you can say maybe no action is taken. And even by the time he resigned, even this case has not been, prosecuted thoroughly. They will come by. You take the issue of the National Youth Service. Cases are in court. And look at the names which are coming up recently. Members of CORD are the ones who had their fingers at the cooking jar. And they know themselves. They know who from CORD got which tender. So we are not saying, is it good because it is called? I'm not saying it's good because it's called. I'm just saying that corruption is an issue of concern in this country. We are not going to succeed in the battle against corruption when we make it like an issue for political brinkmanship and upmanship. We are not going to use it for finger pointing and hope to win the battle against corruption. I would wish that the way two things in this country, we don't have sort of partisanship in terms of the approach. The issue of corruption and the issue of fight against terrorism. We should say, irrespective of whether it is Jubilee or CORD, it does not matter. Whether a terrorist is a terrorist. Whether it is Jubilee or CORD, corruption is corruption. Corruption is not a corporate policy of a political party. Whether CORD or Jubilee is an issue facing all of us. We face it within our own parties. CORD has got its own share of corruption. Jubilee has got its own share of corruption. We need to come together as a country and face this dragon of corruption.
What is your reaction to that argument?
I think losing 6 cabinet secretaries within 2 years to corruption is not something to be proud of. It is not something to be proud of. What does it indicate? It indicates that corruption is more rampant than ever within this administration. And it cannot be said that everything now, like the President said, now the ball is in the court of the judiciary. We want to...
What can the President do once he takes the matter to the government or executive? How can the judiciary is supposed to be independent?
First of all, that corruption is so rampant in this government is a telling sign. There is no day you wake up without facing a new corruption case. We are just now dealing with the youth fund, and we are faced now with the tourism trust fund as another upcoming scandal. That must send a really real warning signal. And when you look at issues that have been raised that have not even been tackled yet, such as the Eurobond, we have had asked very serious questions that nobody is answering as concerns the Eurobond. Was Eurobond money actually remitted back into...
The government says yes, it was put
but where is the evidence that the money was remitted? And where are the projects? Because they're very simple questions. You know, you cannot say that a bomb hit Nairobi and we have to go with a microscope to search for what that bomb hit. What Kenyans are asking is, if Eurobond really came through, why is there so much more domestic borrowing? Why have the interest rates continued to skyrocket? Because when we were going to borrow the Eurobond, we were told that this is to ease pressure on domestic borrowing so that we can now even out our interest rates and move on. But then we are yet to see which projects were actually funded by the Eurobond. You could see that even last year we had to go back again to the international market to borrow without seeing which exact programs the Eurobond funded. So this is a very big question on the neck of the Jubilee government that they have to answer.
The people in the government of Kenya can still, and the Federal Bank of the United States, keep quiet about it?
It's possible.
Why?
And we have written to them. We are still waiting for feedback. It is very possible. Collusions have been possible. International collusions have been possible. The simple question we are asking is, tell us what programs or what projects did the Eurobond finance such that last year we still had to fall back to domestic borrowing and we still had to borrow another syndicated loan late last year when we had the Eurobond and we have not seen the programs that it has implemented. So we are going to continue to pursue the path of the Eurobond. So corruption is rife. There is not enough effort. And if you saw the President's speech in 2015 and the vigor and the valor, and if you compared it, even the time spent on corruption in yesterday's speech, it has reduced significantly. It's like a man who has resigned to the fact that he probably can no longer deal with corruption in this country.
Yes, Mr. Guri.
You know, this tired issue of Eurobond, and you know very well that on the Eurobond we give former Prime Minister a chance to come to integrity, to present documents, and all we got was more fat and no shit, and there was nothing in there.
He said that he was waiting for the Auditor General to give his report.
So I think that was a very good step that he took then. Unfortunately, the Auditor General has not given that report. So can we hold our horses? Because we cannot all be auditors. We cannot all be EACC people. We cannot all be Willy Mutungas. We cannot all be, Tobiko and all that kind of thing. Putting this issue with the Auditor General is the right thing, because the Auditor General is a competent auditor, who is very well trained and very well versed in matters of, public finances. Agnes Odhiambo, the Controller of Budget, did confirm that actually money for Eurobond came in. And God even tried.
It looks like she's changed her mind midway.
I'm sure you got some photos of someone holding a gun on her. I'm still waiting for you to produce that. But God did actually, even try to imply or to implicate the Federal Reserve of America. A very credible, world, one of the leading institutions of monetary control in the world, in what would amount to money laundering. Surely, who would believe that? And even among the donor communities, they were really embarrassed by the behavior of CORD on this particular matter, because it's nothing but economic sabotage. Because when you politicize something that is not there, especially in international markets, what does that mean? That means that the next time you go to markets to borrow, the markets put a premium, at your borrowing, so you are going to borrow more expensively.
Can you address that issue that despite the Eurobond being there, we went back borrowing again, interest rates went up?
Even today we are borrowing, even tomorrow we will borrow.
What did the Eurobond do?
I'm coming in there. Yeah. Borrowing is a normal function of every competent treasury authority. We borrow yesterday, you borrow today, and what do we borrow? You say you borrow for two reasons. One, to gap the actual revenue vis-a-vis your obligation in terms of expenditure, or you borrow because of the timing of how that revenue falls through. And so you might find that today you are borrowing because tax revenues have not come through. When they come through, you have got an excess. So it's a normal thing. It happens in the US. It happens in China. There is no country more indebted in the world than the United States. It owes, especially China, a lot of money. It's a normal thing. And this question of what does a Eurobond money do? Up to the other day, and I think, if I'm not wrong, Grales was in that committee called the Budget Committee. And what you are saying is...
No, I wasn't.
You are not. Your neighbor, John Buddy, was there, who is also your party chair. And now, we have got people like John Buddy. He's the chairman of ODM. He sits with me in that Budget Committee. And we scrutinize all the expenditure vis-a-vis all the revenue, the fiscal health. If there was a problem, if there was a smoking gun, it would have come from the core members of the Budget Committee where I sit. The chair of the Public Accounts Committee, a very refined professional in the name of Nicholas Gumbo. He would have been the first one to say, this is a smoking gun. This is a fact that it was lost. But now, these projects which we do in this country, all projects, irrespective of where the money is coming from, is voted for through the budgetary process, which is even right now we're in the middle of that process. Now, when money comes as a basket to go and fund all the commitments that you have made. And there's no to say that today I'm borrowing for this glass, tomorrow I'm going to borrow for this pen. It's a whole budgetary process. But unfortunately, because CORD believes, CORD's version of economics is what I would call voodoo or yo-yo economics. It has got no fundamentals, it has got no legs. It's all about shouting, oh, Eurobond, oh, this one and that one. Please, why can't they engage their professionals? And they have got a lot of professional people, even within Parliament. They try to do even that. Agnes Odhiambo was coerced to do that. So what are you trying to say? If you are given a job as important as controller...
What I said is she changed her mind.
No, control of budget. If control of budget changes her mind, is she then qualified to be in that position? Yeah? Because that position is such an important... A controller of budget is an accountant. I'm a trained accountant. You are not supposed to comment. It's about, did it happen or did it not happen? Was there money in or was there not money in? What would be there to change the mind about? That's why I'm at a loss. Let us agree that we have got so many arenas we can disagree politically, yeah? But not matters that affect our national interest, like our borrowing rates, our national security. These are matters that we should, even in America out there, you don't do things that injure, the standing of your country. We can disagree about Migingo or this or that, but let's really not disagree about things like this one, which will affect the price for which we borrow. Not Jubilee borrows, the Kenya borrows internationally. Because if the premium on international borrowing goes up because of the kind of misplaced noises that we make on things that are not here locally, then that money is going to be paid by my children and Gladys Wanga's children. It is not about Jubilee. It's about the country and about the future.
Let me just say that no amount of belittling will send away the very valid questions raised by CORD and the public on matters such as Eurobond. You cannot dismiss CORD economists or economics as voodoo, or it just doesn't add up. One, he speaks about budget committee. What has not been remitted to the consolidated fund was therefore not available for appropriation. It was very, very clear that we were borrowing the Eurobond for purposes of infrastructure. I think that was very, very clear in the president's speeches and so on as regards the Eurobond. But the simple question we are asking, which infrastructural projects did the Eurobond finance? It's a very simple question. And this is what the public wants to know. Which ones? Just tell us, it was this road from here to here, it was this wind power project, and this is the question we have asked so many times to Treasury, and there has been no answer. Simply
the Treasury said individual ministries will account for them.
Yeah, but then what is so difficult in just saying we borrowed this much money for the Eurobond, this is what was remitted into the consolidated fund account, these are the programs that these projects were appropriated to. At some point they said they didn't even know that answer, and even our brother Moses Kuria here cannot answer that question. Tell Kenyans, let me just finish because I did not interrupt you. Answer that question. Just simply answer, because you cannot borrow and say we are borrowing or for recurrent, or we are borrowing for various things that we do not even know which exact places this money went to. That's a very, very simple question without going to the technical elements of the Eurobond and the remissions. And we have very, very, we have a very, very serious account of matters as far as the Eurobond is concerned. So don't bring in the budget committee, because monies were not remitted to the consolidated account. They could not have been appropriated by the budget committee. Let me come back to offices such as that of the Auditor General. And the issue, the reason why we say Jubilee is not committed to fighting corruption is because the manner in which it attempts to weaken independent offices such as that of the Auditor General. We have seen the Auditor General's office subjected to frustration, to ridicule. In fact, they have even been called together with the Controller of Budget, and that's why sometimes you might have seen the pullback. They have been, called even moles within the Jubilee government for the simple reason of their ethnicity. So really, and we've seen the public audit law and how it closed back on powers of the Auditor General to audit things such as security and so on, powers that have been expressly given to it by the Constitution. So when you say Jubilee is committed to fighting corruption and at the same time fighting independent offices that are supposed to bring out matters corruption to the fore, then we are lost for, we are on a lost path. Jubilee cannot be committed to fighting corruption when it wants to muzzle the Controller of Budget, wants to muzzle the Auditor General.
But excuse me, the Auditor General has submitted to Parliament, very detailed and very, expansive reports about even misappropriations or financial misappropriations in other areas. So if you trust them in all those things, and every time the Auditor General releases such report, CORD takes it and goes with it to the market, which is fine. That is their role. Their role is to keep Jubilee government or the executive on its toes. So if they trust them on those cases, which they have taken from the Auditor General, and the Auditor General is a very good person who has got the powers that time, then when it comes to Eurobond, they don't trust the same Auditor General. And that is the hallmark of CORD. It is doublespeak. IEBC is good.
Who said you don't trust him?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
IEBC is good when they win. IEBC is bad when they lose. Judiciary Likoti Badia when they lose. judiciary is good when they win. When they go with the constitutional, when we pass things in parliament and they seek intervention of the courts, and the courts rule, they remove this and that clauses, courts are good. When the court rules against, rules against Wetangula, Raila went to Bungoma and said Kotibadia. So we cannot keep on having a Kenya for code when it suits them, and then they change the language when it does not suit them. So the Auditor General is the same person who produces reports which they go to market with against the Jubilee government. And now, when they say Auditor General is investigating the Eurobond, they don't even want to wait for that. Do you think anyone in their sane mind would want to lose 140 billion? By the way, if you are not aware, 140 billion is a lot of money. It is a lot of money. It's not money that just disappears like the Malaysian flight. It is a lot of money. And even me, and I'm sure the president, and I'm sure the entire Jubilee administration would want to know if it's true, really, that 140 billion can just disappear. And if that's true, that money can disappear like that. And we have shown you how we have moved from 0 kilometers to X kilometers in roads, from 1,200 megawatts to 2,296 megawatts. What is funding all this? Paper or the water hyacinth? It is funded by real money. It is funded by a lot of money. And if money would be lost like that, then how would we have achieved all those things that we enumerated in the State of the Nation address yesterday?
So, Gladys, do you see any of that speech the President gave yesterday? Is there anything positive you can see? Maybe since you said you watched it on TV, you are not there in Parliament. What good thing can you say? Anything?
There's nothing to write home about from that speech.
What about
there's absolutely nothing.
What about the figures he's given?
The figures, like when he talks about increase in kilometers in roads.
Yes.
What this government is now doing in terms of roads are these low volume roads. It was said there are going to be 10,000 kilometers in this annuity program, and this annuity program never really took off. And when it started to take off, now the government said, bring in any roads that are low volume, in terms of, they are not the standard volume tarmac roads that were done by the Grand Coalition government that we have seen across this country. They are now low volume, kilometer roads that are not, the standard kilometers. So really,
what about power, energy?
What is the cost? At what cost are we getting some of this? Even when you speak about the standard gauge railway,
yes,
at what cost are we getting the standard gauge railway? Is it the same? We are building the most expensive railway in the world. At what cost? Even when we talk about our children and grandchildren paying, we fear. In fact, I met somebody in Malindi who said, as Muslims, we are not buried when you have debt. So this government must tell us who is going to pay my debt when I die, because I cannot be buried when I still have debt, and our children and our children's children are going to continue to pay the debts that this government is continuing to incur.
Mr. Korea has explained to you, and you should know also, that world over, you see the government of Greece collapsing. America is doing a lot.
I agree.
Britain owes.
I agree totally. So, how do you compare the cost of our railway, the standard gauge railway that we're building, to, for example, the standard gauge railway that was built by Ethiopia? It's many, many times more expensive. And this is the cost of corruption that is sinking us. This is the cost of corruption that is sinking us, that we are talking about. And we're not saying it's bad to borrow, but borrow and show us what these monies that we are borrowing are doing exactly. This is what we are asking.
What about energy? The primary schools are getting electrified.
Yeah, and this is another lie, that 90% of our schools have now been electrified through this Jubilee government.
Yes.
First of all, a lot of the infrastructure for electrifying our primary schools were done during the Grand Coalition government. What Jubilee has been doing is dropping wires into the schools. I mean, that has been mostly what has been done by this government. So it should not be what has cost us the entire Eurobond money.
Mr. Kuri?
What is there to respond to?
Okay, let's go to another subject. The question of, we talked about, social justice. But the fact that in this country, there are two tribes, according to one Waweru, who is my friend, the rich and the poor. that you are doing this mega project. But when you go through the streets of Nairobi, when you go see people, when you drive to work or to go to parliament, there are a lot of people who are walking. There is a lot of poverty in slums, in rural areas. Where you, every Saturdays you are taking flight in the 7 helicopters to go to a wedding. A lot of people we find there have not eaten anything. Social justice. It's one of the issues raised by Article 10.
I totally agree with you on the issue of poverty, and the issues of equity, and on the issue of the trickle-down effect of what we do out there. And historically in this country, we have got a problem of the divide, the social divide, or the economic divide, and we have got a problem of poverty, just like any other developing country.
So the president addressed this? Yes. What did he say about that?
Poverty, to eradicate poverty, you know, you cannot. Eradication of poverty, let me educate you, Mutegi. Eradication of poverty is not something you hold an event at Uhuru Park and say, this is now for flagging of eradication of poverty.
You do something.
This is not a round of that. It is this incremental steps and the cumulative effects of what you do in the infrastructure, of what you do to bring down the cost of power, so that you can be able to have more industries coming, and those industries employ more people, so that you can be able to decrease the cost of inputs, like what we are doing through fertilizer, for example, subsidized fertilizer, so the cost of production comes down, and the benefit of that goes to that common man down there. So according to real conventional economics, not called voodoo economics, it is the incremental steps of the steps that you take on infrastructure, on the cost of living, on power, on creating a friendly business environment that then is able to attract investors and the private sector, and that creates a drive, because you cannot create all jobs from government. Ultimately that will trickle down to that man at the bottom of the pyramid, and that is how we are going to remove poverty.
Okay, because you're running out of time, can you address the issue of social justice?
I think you cannot achieve social justice and equity within the society, and as you say, the poor people remain very poor. The rich continue to grow rich, and the Jubilee government is aiding this by abetting corruption. How can you achieve social justice when there is such, and even you know, when there is such corruption prevailing within the country, when monies that are supposed to go into, for example, the youth fund, because part of bringing equity is getting our vulnerable persons to come to the same, you know, table. When you have money for the youth fund, for example, being embezzled, how do you achieve social justice? How do you achieve equity? How do these things happen with this rate of corruption that the Jubilee administration is showing unwillingness to combat within this country? So really, the unwillingness, the people who benefit, and you speak about fertilizers, but farmers are remaining with their maize in the granaries without markets. The prices have plummeted. When you talk about tea, for example, and then you take, in terms of priorities, you take an irrigation project that is failing to Galana Kulalu, when you know that the Rift Valley is the bread basket of this country. Misplaced priorities cannot achieve social justice.
Finally, I want to finish by telling Cold, you know, what is fact, and it's good to see even positive things that have been done, because one day, you know, if you would want to be in government, you'd also want things that you do to be respected and to be seen for what they are. It is good to point out the things that are not right or that are wrong, but it will not win you points either in votes or in heaven by you just criticizing everything that is done out there. It's not good for this country, because we all belong to this country. The second thing I would want to say is that corruption should be an issue of concern, not the political bogeyman of God for everything that we try to do in this country. We should all combine and have a bipartisan approach in corruption. And finally, as I conclude, I think it behoves upon court to show that they can be the alternative government. And the things we have seen recently, yesterday was just a culmination, what we saw in Parliament yesterday, of a party that is not really to be a government in waiting. They mismanaged it yesterday in Parliament very badly, to the chagrin even of their own supporters. They mismanage their own referendum. They can't even manage a referendum. They can't even manage a dais, the podium for the Prime Minister. You saw what happened the other day. If you can't manage a simple dais, wood, you can't manage wood, how can you manage a country? You can't manage signatures, you draw cows and camels. How can you manage a country? You can't behave with decorum if in the most unlikely event that Raila Odinga becomes the Prime Minister of this country. I will listen to him, the President of this country. In the most unlikely event, I will listen to him, I will respect him, I will treat him with the decorum that is required of a head of state. Unfortunately, it will be a cold day in hell. It will never happen.
Finally?
Yeah, let me just say that as CORD, we are not cheerleaders of Jubilee. And we will not be expected to be clapping as Jubilee continues to plunder this country. As corruption skyrockets, as they continue to steal and Kenyans continue to suffer, as they continue to tear the fabric, the very fabric that holds this country together, as they continue to appoint to communities as other communities watch, as they drag this country back to the dark days, as they continue to intimidate media and journalists, as they continue, Mutegi, to return this country to the very dark days. We have seen journalists being fired for writing things that are against the sitting government. So we will not sit back. We will be ridiculed. We are a government in waiting. As far as Okoa Kenya is concerned, we want IEBC to tell us which register they used. A signature can be just about anything.
Well, the IEBC said they are not interested.
We want the IEBC to tell us which register, which of the 3 registers they used to verify the signatures that Okoa Kenya submitted. And I think I want to ask Kenyans to watch this space. We submitted sufficient signatures. We will not bow down to ridicule. We will not bow down to intimidation. We will continue to perform our role as a government in waiting and as an opposition that is not a cheerleader for the government.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. When we started, I said there was breaking news that 6 lions have strayed out of the Nairobi National Park, and we will keep you briefed on this matter as we continue with this station. Meanwhile, have a nice Fool's Day.
Is Simba last one of them?